All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. We are a little bit less than 1 month away from the start of the 2023 college football season. I talked about the top 25 a couple of days ago, and yesterday it was all about the Big Ten. Now, I am going to be talking about the Atlantic Coast Conference, and the ACC has now ditched the Atlantic and Coastal Division format as it's a 14 team free for all, and they're trying to free things up, and they're also trying to make sure that their best team or teams have an opportunity to reach the college football playoff. And of course, college football playoff will be expanding soon. But nonetheless, with an eye here for 2023, who has what it takes to win the ACC? You look at the Clemson Tigers, and for Clemson under head coach Dabo Sweeney, they have dominated this conference as they are looking to make it 8 ACC titles over the last 9 years. Now, last year things didn't work out for DJU at quarterback, and we saw him transfer to Oregon State. But will things for this Clemson offense be any different with sophomore Cade Klubnik at the controls? Clemson has to improve in their passing game as they were 66 rather in the nation last year in that category. Clemson will run the football effectively under Dabo Sweeney, and I look for Will Shipley and Phil Maffa to have a big time impact on that. And as Clemson runs the ball, I think it's going to put Klubnik in better opportunities to pass and get into a rhythm this year. Defensively for Clemson, and the Tigers continue to be stalwarts on that side, no matter how many NFL players are leaving this defense on a yearly basis. You look at junior middle linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr., an ACC Defensive Player of the Year candidate in my book. Unlike his dad, I don't think the Trotter is going to have to wait that long to hear his name called for the NFL draft. Might not be a first or second round pick, but I think he's definitely got the potential to have an impact, especially this year at the collegiate level. You also look at outside linebacker Barrett Carter. And of course, the question is going to be, are the Tigers going to once again be the team to beat in the ACC? I think they will definitely have a say as far as who's going to win this conference. Clemson will have a very tough schedule this year. The big one on September 23rd, when they welcome Florida State to Death Valley. This game has meant a lot as far as, getting to the ACC championship game in recent years. And I think that is once again going to be the case this year. On the 7th of October, Clemson hosts Wake Forest. They're at Miami on the 21st of October. That could be a big game right there. They host Notre Dame on the 4th of November. And remember, Clemson went to South Bend last year, and it was a house of horrors for them. The Tigers will host North Carolina on November 18th, and then they finish up at South Carolina on the 25th. And remember, that loss to South Carolina at home last year derailed the Tigers' chances of getting to the playoffs. So let's see what type of Clemson team we get this year. For Florida State, you look at what Mike Norvell has done. As it's taken him 3 years, but he has gotten the Seminoles back to the category of contenders in the ACC, as really only the dominance of Clemson kept the Noles from getting to the ACC championship game last year. They started off strong, had that 3-game losing streak, and then they finished the season on a 6-game tear. And now that the ACC has shed the divisional format, being that Clemson has been the roadblock for Florida State, they no longer have to worry about that as far as, just needing to win your division. It's going to be the top two teams if Florida State can be one of those top two teams. And they have the talent there. You look at senior quarterback Jordan Travis, junior running back Trey Benson. You look at wide receiver Johnny Wilson, and then you get the Michigan State transferred wide receiver in Keon Coleman. Then defensively, I've talked about Jared Verse in the past, and I think he's going to be one of the top and very special defenders in the nation, just not the ACC this year. But then middle linebacker Kalen DeLoach, and then outside linebacker Tatum Bethune, and then in that secondary, junior cornerback Greedy Vance. And this is something that we haven't seen really since the days of Jimbo Fisher, as far as the talent at all three levels on the defensive side of the ball for the Noles. I talked about the big one, September 23rd at Clemson. But then Florida State begins the season in Orlando with LSU. They host Miami on November 11th, and then they finish in Gainesville with the Gators on the 25th. So let's see if Florida State has what it takes to reach the ACC championship game. For Boston College, they made some strides a couple of years ago under head coach Jeff Hafley. They've taken a huge step back, and honestly, with the exception of BC's first couple of years in the ACC, they've been an afterthought, and honestly, they really haven't even been relevant. It's one of those where, to the casual college football fan, they're not even going to know that Boston College is in the ACC. They're a fish out of water, and I think they're going to be continue to be a fish out of water. You look at this BC offense, which was 121st in the nation last year, and I don't see it getting too much better. And that's what the Eagles are going to need to compete, and it's going to be a long way up for them. Now, another one of their former Big East brethren in Syracuse had a tale of two seasons last year. They started off so strong, and then they tapered off. But for head coach Dino Babers, can his team rebound to really make some noise in the ACC this year? You got an experienced quarterback and senior Garrett Schrader. You look at junior wide receiver Aronde Gadsden Jr., the son of another former NFL player right here. And then defensively, middle linebacker Marlowe Wax. And then you look at this Syracuse team, they want to try to get off strong again this year, but it's not going to be as easy. They're at Purdue on the 16th of September. They host Clemson on September 30th. And in recent years, Syracuse has been a thorn in the side of Clemson. Will that continue? At North Carolina on the 7th of October, at Florida State on the 14th of October. And that's a tough two-game stretch right there at North Carolina and at Florida State. And then in November, they're going to take on Pitt at Yankee Stadium. Now, I look at this Miami team, and I think the Hurricanes are not ready to contend for the ACC championship as of yet. However, I think this team is going to be improving as the year progresses, as this is year number 2 for Mario Cristobal as the head coach. You look at junior quarterback Tyler Van Dyke. You got 3 seniors on the offensive line. So Miami's definitely going to try to run that football. I look at free safety Cam Kitchens, the defensive player of the year candidate in the ACC, and you have to keep your eyes on him for the Thorpe Award as well. Miami definitely wants to start strong. They host Texas A&M out of the SEC on September 9th. They're at North Carolina on the 14th of October, and then they're home for Clemson on the 21st. A tough 2-game stretch right there. And then, of course, the biggie with Florida State on November 11th. North Carolina State, the Wolfpack, they were in the mix last year to get to the ACC championship game, but injuries did them in. And now you got no more Devin Leary at quarterback as he transferred to Kentucky. But NC State gets the former Virginia quarterback in Brennan Armstrong. You got 3 grad transfers and a pair of juniors on the offensive line for the Wolfpack. Defensively, definitely keep an eye out for junior cornerback Aiden White, as well as senior outside linebacker Peyton Wilson. Now, NC State, they have been a very tough team to go to Raleigh and face in recent years, and I think that trend continues. They host Notre Dame on September 9th, and then, of course, a big one for them where they host Clemson on the 28th of October. And remember, 2 years ago, Clemson went to Raleigh and lost. And you look at this year, North Carolina State has all of their big games at home. They got a 2-week stretch rather, where they host Clemson and then they host Miami, and then they come back at the end of the year, of course, and host North Carolina. And remember, the Wolfpack went to Chapel Hill last year and got the best of the Tar Heels. For Wake Forest, they're one of those schools where they're not on a lot of top prospects' radars, but for Dave Clawson, he continues to go out there and churn out wins at this Winston-Salem school. Now, of course, no more Sam Hartman at quarterback as he transferred to Notre Dame, but now you got Mitch Griffiths, and this is a kid that he has 2 years under his belt in the Wake Forest program, and I think that's going to amount to something positive for the Demon Deacons this year. Keep an eye out for junior running back Justice Ellison. Only 2 seniors on the offensive line, so that's gonna be big right there. But the Demon Deacons definitely have to improve defensively as they were 88th in the nation last year in that category. And with that said, you have to keep an eye out for senior outside linebacker Chase Jones. For the Virginia Cavaliers, what a tough year that 2022 was. Of course, they were in the midst of transitioning from Bronco Mendenhall to Tony Elliott, and then tragedy unfortunately struck towards the end of the season when 3 of their players were killed while returning to campus from a school function. And of course, uh, Virginia at that point decided to just suspend the rest of their season, and rightfully so, because that entire community in Charlottesville, just needed time to heal. And I think, the Cavaliers are probably going to still have some heavy hearts when they take the field in a couple of weeks, but I think they're going to be playing for the legacies of their fallen teammates. For Virginia, there's some talent on this team. You got 5 seniors and a grad transfer starting on offense. I also look at junior outside linebacker James Jackson, but the Cavaliers definitely have to improve offensively as they were 103rd in the nation last year in total offense. But again, Virginia is going to be playing with some heavy hearts, and let's see what type of year that we get from the Cavaliers. Now, from Georgia Tech, this team last year was well on their way to another underwhelming season after their 1-3 start, and then we saw head coach Jeff Collins get relieved of his duties. Nothing was really eye-popping, if you will, when Brent Pry was promoted rather to being the interim head coach. And under Pry, the Yellow Jackets surprised a lot of people. They went 4-4, and they were a tough out for the rest of the season. And of course, that resulted in Brent Pry being named as the full-time head coach heading into this season. He's a Georgia Tech guy. He knows what it takes to win there. As he was, played there in the late '90s, which was a heyday for this program. And now he wants to try to bring some of that to the coaching ranks to try to get the Yellow Jackets back on track in the ACC. Will it be Haynes King at starting quarterback for Georgia Tech, the former A&M quarterback, or will Pry go with redshirt freshman Zach Pryon? We got to wait and see. Georgia Tech, they only have 2 seniors on offense as this is a young team, and they've got to get better defensively as they were 85th in the nation last year. One player to keep an eye on defensively for the Jackets is going to be junior free safety LaMiles Brooks. And for Georgia Tech, they want to get off to a quick start to get some confidence. They'll take on Louisville on the 1st of September in Atlanta. And of course, this is a transitional year for Louisville. So if Georgia Tech can find a way to get some wins early, it will definitely get their confidence going as hopefully for their sakes, they can become bowl eligible this year. Now, North Carolina, we saw the Tar Heels reach the ACC championship game last year, but do they have what it takes to win the conference this time around? First and foremost, North Carolina has to get better defensively. They were 116th in the nation last year in that category. And I don't care how much offense you have, if you can't stop your opponent, you're not going to win against the elite teams. And of course, you got to beat the elite teams just to win your conference. We know what Drake Maye can do. Is this is probably going to be his final audition for the NFL. He's probably going to be a first round pick in next spring's NFL draft. I do believe 5 or 6 quarterbacks are going to go in round number 1 next year, and Drake Maye is definitely going to be in that category, along with being the ACC Offensive Player of the Year here in 2023. North Carolina's also got to get better running the football, as Drake Maye cannot once again be this team's leading rusher. So it's going to be interesting to see for Mac Brown how dangerous that his heels are going to be. And a very interesting schedule for North Carolina this year. They take on South Carolina in Charlotte on the 2nd of September. They then host Minnesota out of the Big Ten on the 16th of September. They're at Pitt on the 23rd of September, and then they host Miami on the 14th of October, and then they're at Clemson on the 18th. For Virginia Tech, you look at this team, and they're in rebuild mode right now for this program. It's taking a little bit longer than a lot of people would have wanted to see. But nonetheless, you know what? Let's see what what the Hokies rather can do. I mean, it was one of those things where they, to me, I think, were spoiled for so long under Frank Beamer, and then of course, things kind of went, sideways. But I think for the Hokies, they've got to get back to recruiting and dominating Virginia and the Maryland areas. That's something that this program did at its height. And excuse me for 1 minute, I said Brent Pry before I meant Brent Key when I was talking about the Georgia Tech head coach. Brent Pry is the guy who's running things for the Hokies. So you got senior quarterback Grant Wells. You only have one senior on the offensive line for the Hokies, and they're going to be starting a pair of redshirt freshmen on the line. So all three of Virginia Tech's top tacklers from last year are gone. So I think this could be a very difficult year in Blacksburg. Now, you look at the Pitt Panthers, and over the last 2 years under head coach Pat Narduzzi, they're 20-7. They have an outright ACC championship to their credit. But now that the ACC's done away with the divisions, will the Panthers get caught up in the wash, or will they still be able to hang with the big boys in the conference? Now, Pitt has some new players coming in offensively, but their rock is going to be their offensive line with four seniors up front. So I look at Pitt. This is going to be an up and down year for the Panthers, but towards the end of the year, this is going to be a team that nobody wants to face. And I think when it's all said and done, that should result in them once again getting to a bowl game. Now, for Louisville, this is going to be a homecoming as you have Jeff Brom, who just left Purdue to be the new head coach for the Cardinals. He played his college ball at Louisville. He was also an assistant coach at his alma mater for 6 years. And he was 36 and 34 in 6 years at Purdue. But he did turn things around for the Boilermakers, and he did lead them to the Big Ten championship game last year. Now, Rob knows what it takes to win at Louisville, but in year number one under him, will his Cardinals be able to make some waves in the ACC? He's bringing quarterback Jack Plummer from Purdue with him to Louisville. So that's big right there. And then also keep an eye out for junior running back Jawar Jordan. Three of Louisville's top four tacklers from last season graduated. So that's going to be tough right there for the Cardinals. But I think this is going to be a feeling out year. But with that all said and done, I still think Louisville is going to be in that category of teams that progress as the season goes along. And finally, there's going to be Duke. And, for Duke, it didn't take head coach Mike Elko that long to turn things around for the Devils. As in just his first year in Durham, he led them to a 9-win season for the first time since 2014. But they're not going to sneak up on anybody this year. But Duke definitely does have quarter talent with quarterback Riley Leonard. You got three seniors on that offensive line. And then defensively, keep an eye out for senior outside linebacker Cam Dillon, as well as junior cornerback Brandon Johnson, because this guy is one of those Mr. Do It All guys. As he covers, he plays the run, and he can rush the passer. So that's going to be interesting for me, for Duke, to see if they'll be able to, remain among the upper echelon or the top side of the ACC this year. But when it's all said and done, especially now that the ACC has decided to shed the divisional format, I think this conference comes down to Clemson and Florida State. They are the two best teams. They have, the best ability, if you will, to not only win this conference, but also potentially get to the college football playoff. The way I see it, I see Clemson winning the regular season matchup between Clemson and Florida State, but then I see Florida State getting the best of Clemson in a rematch in Charlotte come December for the ACC championship game. And when it's all said and done, I think the Noles have what it takes to win this conference. They have one of the better defenses. They have talent at each three levels of that defense. They have one of the better quarterbacks. And again, you have one of the best players in that conference, regardless of position, in Jared Verse. So when it's all said and done for me, I think the Knowles are going to be the team to beat this year in the Atlantic Coast Conference. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.